In a dusty corner of rural Missouri, Andre Peterson pulled over for what he thought was an abandoned kitten, a tiny creature huddled in a rusty cage, shivering in the cold October wind. Compassion drove him to rescue it, and he named her Monica. But as months passed and the kitten grew at an astonishing rate, its unique features began to tell a startling secret. Monica was no ordinary house cat at all, but a wild bobcat. This is a journey of unexpected twists as one man's act of kindness challenges everything he knew about nature, responsibility, and the wild. What happens when the pet you thought you saved turns out to be a creature of the wild? Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories.
The autumn wind whistled through the bare branches of Missouri's oak trees as Andre Peterson's pickup truck rumbled down the narrow country road. At 42, he had grown accustomed to these solitary drives between his small veterinary supply business in Springfield and the rural farms he serviced. The late October sky hung low and gray, threatening rain, but Andre found peace in these quiet moments away from the city's constant buzz. He was just passing Old Miller's farm when something caught his eye: a rusty wire cage perched precariously on the back of a battered farm truck. Inside, a small figure huddled against the harsh wind. Andre slowed his vehicle, squinting through the gathering dusk. His heart clenched when he realized it was a kitten, its gray-brown fur ruffled by the bitter breeze. Without hesitation, Andre pulled over and parked behind the truck. The farmhouse lights glowed dimly in the distance, and he could make out the silhouette of Tom Miller, a weather-beaten farmer he'd known for years, walking toward him with a troubled expression. "Evening, Andre," Tom called out, his voice carrying a weight that Andre hadn't heard before. "Wasn't expecting to see you today." Andre gestured toward the cage. "What's the story with the little one?" Tom's weathered face creased with concern. "That there's been causing me trouble. Lost 3 chickens this week to that creature. Found it this morning in my coop, scared half to death, but still fighting like a demon." He shook his head. "Can't afford to lose any more livestock. Gonna have to put it down." Andre stepped closer to the cage, his breath visible in the cold air. The kitten couldn't have been more than a few months old, its large eyes reflecting fear and exhaustion. Despite its predicament, there was something striking about its features: tufted ears, a peculiar facial ruff, and unusually large paws for its size. "Tom," Andre said slowly, "what if I took it off your hands?" The farmer's eyebrows shot up. "You sure about that? Things wild as they come. Probably feral." Andre had always had a soft spot for animals in need. It came with the territory of working with veterinarians and farmers all his life. But there was something about this particular creature that called to him. Perhaps its fierce determination to survive, or maybe just the thought of it facing execution for following its natural instincts. "I've got experience with difficult cases," Andre assured him, though he'd never actually owned a cat himself. "I'll make sure it doesn't cause any more trouble around here." After some discussion and Andre's promise to pay for the lost chickens, Tom helped him transfer the cage to his truck. The kitten hissed and spat during the movement, but Andre noticed it hadn't made any attempt to attack through the cage's bars, unusual for a truly feral cat. On the drive home, Andre spoke softly to his new companion, hoping to ease its fears. "Let's get you somewhere warm and safe. We'll figure out the rest later." He decided to call it Monica. After reading the name in a book about spirit animals, it seemed fitting for such a fierce little survivor. Andre's home was a modest 2-bedroom ranch house on the outskirts of Springfield, with a spacious fenced backyard that he'd always meant to do something with. That night, he set up a comfortable space in his spare room with a litter box, food and water bowls, and a soft bed made from an old sweater. When he finally opened the cage door, Monica darted into the darkest corner of the room, watching him with intense golden eyes. "Take your time," Andre murmured, leaving the door slightly ajar. You're safe now." Over the next few days, Andre worked patiently to earn Monica's trust. He noticed immediately that the kitten had unusual eating habits. It showed no interest in traditional cat food, but devoured the raw chicken he offered. Its movements were different too, more fluid and powerful than any domestic cat he'd seen. Gradually, Monica began to accept Andre's presence. Within a week, the kitten would come out to eat while he sat quietly in the room. By the second week, it allowed him to sit closer, though still maintaining a cautious distance. Andre found himself fascinated by his new companion's behaviors and characteristics, which seemed to become more pronounced as the days passed. The first real breakthrough came during a thunderstorm. Andre was awakened by strange sounds from the spare room and found Monica clearly distressed by the thunder. Without thinking, he sat on the floor and began talking softly. To his surprise, the kitten approached him and, after several minutes of hesitation, pressed against his leg, seeking comfort. "Well, look at you," Andre whispered, carefully reaching down to stroke Monica's fur. "Not so scary after all, are you?" From that night on, their relationship transformed. Monica began following Andre around the house, showing an intelligence that sometimes startled him. The kitten learned to respond to its name and developed a routine of greeting Andre at the door when he returned from work. But along with these endearing developments came some concerning changes. Monica was growing at an extraordinary rate. By the third month, the kitten had nearly tripled in size, far exceeding the growth rate of any domestic cat breed Andre knew of. Its features became more pronounced, the ear tufts more prominent, the facial ruff more distinct, and its paws disproportionately large. The way it moved had changed too, developing a distinctive bobbing gait that Andre couldn't quite place. The first hint of trouble came during a routine supply delivery to Dr. Sarah Chin's veterinary clinic. Andre had been describing Monica's rapid growth to her over several visits, and she'd grown increasingly interested in the case. "Would you mind if I came by to take a look?" she asked one day. "Some of what you're describing sounds unusual." Andre agreed, grateful for her professional opinion. The next evening, Dr. Chin arrived at his home, medical bag in hand. Monica, now nearly the size of a full-grown house cat despite being only a few months old, watched her warily from atop a bookshelf. Dr. Chin's examination was thorough, and her expression grew increasingly serious as she observed Monica's distinctive features and behaviors. Finally, she sat back on her heels and looked at Andre with concern. "Andre," she said carefully, "I don't think you have a domestic cat here. The physical characteristics, the growth rate, the behavioral patterns, everything points to this being a bobcat kit." The words hit Andre like a physical blow. "A bobcat? But that's impossible. I found it on a farm." "Which is exactly where you might find one," Dr. Chin explained. Bobcats sometimes venture into agricultural areas looking for prey. The features are unmistakable: the short tail, the black-tipped ears, the facial ruff. "I'm actually surprised we didn't recognize it sooner." Andre sank into his armchair, watching Monica, who was now grooming itself with typical feline indifference to their conversation. "What does this mean? What do I need to do?" Dr. Chin's expression softened. "Legally, you can't keep a wild animal as a pet without proper permits and facilities. I'm required to report this to the Wildlife Authority." She paused, seeing the distress on Andre's face. "They'll probably want to relocate it to a wildlife sanctuary." The next few days passed in a blur of anxiety and desperate research. Andre received an official notice from the Missouri Department of Conservation stating that he had 30 days to either surrender Monica to their custody or obtain the necessary permits and facilities to legally house a wild animal. The requirements seemed overwhelming: specialized enclosure specifications, safety protocols, regular veterinary checkups, and substantial insurance coverage. One evening, as Andre sat in his backyard watching Monica explore the enclosed space with characteristic grace, he made a decision that would change both their lives. He couldn't bear the thought of surrendering Monica to strangers, even well-meaning ones. The bond they'd formed was too precious to break. He began researching properties outside the city limits, eventually finding a 5-acre plot of land about 40 minutes from Springfield. The property was rough, mostly woodland with a small clearing and a modest cabin that needed work, but it was affordable, especially if he sold his current home. Andre's friends thought he was crazy when he told them his plan. "You're going to upend your entire life for a wild animal?" his sister Rachel asked during one of their weekly phone calls. "It's not just about Monica," Andre tried to explain. "This feels right, like something I was meant to do." He started documenting their story on social media, sharing photos and updates about Monica's growth and their daily interactions. To his surprise, their story resonated with people. A local news station picked up the story, featuring Andre and Monica in a segment about unusual animal rescues. The exposure brought both support and scrutiny. Local wildlife inspector Marcus Thompson arrived one morning for an unannounced visit. Andre's heart sank, expecting the worst, but Thompson's reaction surprised him. "I've seen a lot of people try to keep wild animals as pets," Thompson said, watching Monica move through an agility course Andre had built. "Most of them do it for the wrong reasons. Ego, social media fame, whatever. But you're different. You're actually putting the animal's needs first." Thompson became an unexpected ally, helping Andre navigate the complex permit requirements and providing valuable advice about facility design. Through the online community that had formed around Monica's story, Andre connected with other wildlife rehabilitators and sanctuary operators who offered guidance and support. The transition to the new property wasn't easy. Andre had to adjust his business operations, setting up a home office and reorganizing his delivery routes. The cabin needed substantial repairs, and building Monica's enclosure to specifications was both physically demanding and expensive. But the online community rallied around them, with local supporters organizing fundraisers and volunteer workdays to help with construction. By the time spring arrived, the transformation was complete. Monica's new enclosure sprawled across a 1/4 acre, incorporating natural features like trees and rocks, with multiple dens and elevated platforms. The cabin, though still simple, was comfortable and functional. Most importantly, they had all the necessary permits and approvals. Andre's experience with Monica had opened his eyes to a new calling. He began taking courses in wildlife rehabilitation and working with local conservation groups. His property, which he named Second Chance Wildlife Haven, gradually evolved into a small sanctuary specializing in native species rehabilitation. 1 year after rescuing Monica, Andre stood at his cabin's window, watching his companion explore the morning mist that wrapped around the trees. Monica had grown into a magnificent adult bobcat, weighing nearly 30 pounds, with all the power and grace of his wild heritage. Yet the bond between them remained strong, built on mutual trust and respect. The sanctuary had already helped rehabilitate several other animals, injured owls, orphaned raccoons, and even another bobcat kit. Each success story reinforced Andre's conviction that he'd made the right choice that cold October evening. Dr. Chun, who had become the sanctuary's primary veterinarian, often remarked on the transformation she'd witnessed, not just in Monica, but in Andre himself. "You've found your purpose," she told him during one of her regular visits. "Some people spend their whole lives looking for that." Andre's story began spreading beyond their local community, inspiring others to get involved in wildlife conservation. He started offering educational programs, teaching visitors about the importance of respecting wild animals while sharing the valuable lessons he'd learned from his unexpected journey with Monica. The sanctuary's guest book filled with messages from visitors moved by their story. One entry particularly touched Andre. "Thank you for showing us that sometimes the best thing we can do is adapt our lives to help another creature, rather than trying to make them fit into our world." On quiet evenings, Andre would sit on his cabin's porch, watching Monica patrol his territory with confident strides. Sometimes the bobcat would pause and look at him with those same intense golden eyes that had captured his heart that first night. In those moments, Andre was reminded that the best decisions in life often come from following your heart, even when the path ahead seems uncertain. Their story became a testament to the unexpected ways life can change when we open our hearts to helping others. What began as a simple act of kindness, saving what he thought was an abandoned kitten, had evolved into a mission that gave both of their lives new meaning and purpose. As Andre's sanctuary continued to grow, he often reflected on the series of events that led him there. He realized that sometimes the most significant changes in our lives come disguised as challenges, and that true compassion often requires us to adapt and grow in ways we never expected. The local community that had initially been skeptical of his decision became some of his strongest supporters. Farmers who once viewed wildlife as nuisances began calling Andre for advice on coexisting with local predators. Schools arranged field trips to the sanctuary, where children learned about wildlife conservation through Monica's story. Andre's sister Rachel, who had questioned his decision initially, became one of the sanctuary's most dedicated volunteers. "I've never seen you so fulfilled," she told him one day as they worked together to prepare food for the animals. Sometimes the craziest decisions turn out to be the wisest ones. As the seasons changed and years passed, Andre and Monica's story continued to touch lives and inspire change. What started as a rescue became a revelation, a reminder that sometimes the animals we save end up saving us in return, showing us who we were meant to be all along. The end of each day found Andre grateful for that fateful October evening when he'd spotted a shivering creature in a cage. He'd thought he was saving a kitten, but instead, he'd found his calling. As he watched the sunset paint the sanctuary in golden hues, with Monica's powerful silhouette visible against the darkening sky, Andre knew that some mistakes turn out to be the best decisions we ever make. His journey from pet supplier to wildlife sanctuary operator hadn't been easy, but it had been right. In saving Monica, Andre had discovered a deeper truth about himself and his place in the world. Their story served as a reminder that compassion, coupled with dedication and courage, can transform not just one life, but many, creating ripples of positive change that extend far beyond what we could ever imagine. And so, their story continues to unfold, a testament to the extraordinary bonds that can form between humans and wildlife when we choose to act with kindness and understanding, even if, or perhaps especially when, things don't turn out quite the way we expected them to.